The banners for 5.1 second half have been revealed, and they are looking absolutely perfect for a certain type of player. We're going to talk about the 5 stars, the 4 stars, and the weapon banner to help you decide if you want to wish or skip. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Starting off with the 5 stars, Nahida and Hu Tao. For Hu Tao, it's pretty simple. I think Hu Tao, I've been playing her a decent bit these last couple days in preparation for making some sort of updated video on her, and Hu Tao is still really strong. I think there's a certain bit of conversation on whether or not Hu Tao was power crept by Arlecchino, and I do think generally this is true. They have very similar teams and gimmicks, with Arlecchino's teams generally just being stronger and also not requiring Furina. Hu Tao's teams, of course, don't require Furina, but if you want her best teams, then they generally do. That being said, it's not the same thing that I would call Hu Tao. I would call yoimiya reverse power creep Hu Tao, whereas yoimiya kind of feels underwhelming enough to be pretty hard to 36 star a lot of abysses with, whereas Hu Tao has never had that problem. Hu Tao's power level is still very much in line with all the other good DPSs, aside from, in my opinion, Novelet, Arlecchino, and Mualani, and otherwise Hu Tao is really awesome. She does have the Furina teams that I mentioned, like Furina Yolan Shalonen or Furina Yolan Shanyun, but people still love classic double hydro of Yolan, Xingqiu, and Zhongli. There's still Bennett teams. She has really frankly a ton of teams. So Hu Tao, never a character that you get for meta, but if you like Hu Tao, I mean, goodness, she has such a good design. She has one of the best designs in the game, in my opinion, so unique. She has a bit of a weird playstyle with her jump cancels at Constellation 0 and a very fun playstyle at Constellation 1. I do plan on getting her Constellation 1 this banner, simply because it's very easy to simulate a Constellation 0 Hu Tao just by not doing dash cancels and doing jump cancels instead. So I feel like by getting Constellation 1, I'll be able to test C1 versus C0. Plus, I think most Hu Tao mains will be going for either Staff of Homa or Constellation 1. Maybe not most, but a really good percentage. And I would like to give my take as to how valuable C1 is, particularly because I can always test at C0 as well. She also has a great weapon. Staff of Homa is excellent for her and a great generalist weapon. And with the fate point system being much better nowadays, it's much more advisable to potentially go for a weapon. So on the whole, while she doesn't make it into like the meta pull or the recommended pull, if this is a character you like, then I highly recommend you get her. I have been playing Hu Tao. Well, I mained her for a really long time. I played her even on mobile, and I learned her jump cancels, and I was able to get all my jump cancels. I did have a pretty good phone. If you don't have a super good phone, or if you don't have a PC or, you know, a real device, then she can be annoying to play. Just make sure you play her a bunch in the trial and that you're actually enjoying her jump cancel playstyle before you get her. A lot of people do find that even though, you know, yoimiya doesn't do as much damage, they prefer her, and Arlecchino does more damage, and people generally prefer that playstyle. And I don't really agree with, you know, you already have Xiangling, so you don't need Hu Tao. Xiangling is an off-field AoE pyro DPS, and Hu Tao is an on-field single target pyro DPS, and even if you take away the off-field on-field distinction, Hu Tao just does a lot better in single target than Xiangling, especially when you start actually getting good artifact investment. So overall, not meta, still great if you like her. Make sure you like her playstyle, and having Xingqiu on the banner is really good, so you at least will have some kind of team that works, because she does really require some good hydro for vaping. Next is Nahida, and I think we kind of got to talk about the banner as a whole. Nahida is basically Dendro the character. Dendro was super meta in my opinion when it came out, but throughout Fontaine and now continuing into Natlin, we've had DPSs that just sort of set a new bar and then just sort of power creep what Hyper Bloom was, and also supports that bring up old DPSs to be as good or better than Hyper Bloom. Like when Hyper Bloom came out, it was, in my opinion, sort of on par with Hu Tao teams on balance, because Hu Tao teams, of course, are harder to play and they can be better than Hyper Bloom. Even the old double hydro teams, if you have good investment, you play well. Maybe you have her C1 or Staff of Homa or both. But Hyper Bloom, for a free-to-play level, just mashing, gets really close to peak Hu Tao and outpaces not peak Hu Tao. And that was kind of like that was kind of what it was for a while. But the thing was, new supports came out that made Hu Tao even stronger. New artifact sets, Marishise Hunter, Farina, and not just Hu Tao, but pretty much most of the good DPSs that stayed good, they got buffs to keep up and re-surpass Hyperbloom as like a core. When I say Hyperbloom, I'm talking Nahida, Kuki, and Hydro. So usually that's Xingqiu Yelan, or Xingqiu Alhaitham, or Yelan Alhaitham, or Farina Alhaitham. Alhaitham being, of course, the strongest variant, and Double Hydro being my general comfiest preferred one. Meanwhile, all the other DPSs and like traditional DPSs, because that's not even to mention Mualani, Arlecchino, and Novelette, like outpacing Hyperbloom. But meanwhile, Hyperbloom has sort of gotten basically nothing. Farina didn't really add all that much. You can also do Farina, Yelan, Kuki, Nahida. But yeah, Farina didn't add all that much to Hyperbloom. It did some work for Alhaitham, and definitely I think cemented Alhaitham as truly the best, like by a non-debatable margin that made Alhaitham Hyperbloom the best version. It was already the best, but then, you know, just brought it to that next level. But other than that, like it wasn't a huge buff, because Farina does best when she's buffing like multiple units, but Nahida doesn't do that much damage. She does a good amount, but not like a crazy amount, and then Kuki is not doing damage and not doing that much healing, and so overall it's just like not the best synergy of all time. So what I'm saying is that basically all through Fontaine there were no buffs to Hyperbloom. There were no new characters, there were no whatever. I think it's pretty much high time we get, you know, a Hyperbloom centric DPS or a Hyperbloom centric character. I mean, we already have Alhaitham, so maybe not a DPS, but you know, stuff to change it up basically. But Hyperbloom is just such an amazing core for new players. Having to build on like you have to build like a decent set on your Hydro character, like your Yelan or Xingqiu, but you can just farm Gilded Dreams, Deepwood Memories for your Nahida Kuki combo, and it's just so efficient. You only need EM main stats to get really close to peak damage with Kuki. So free to play. Kuki does really want her C2 to have full uptime. You can get away without it, but you really do kind of want it. And overall, it's just so easy to build. It's so easy to play, and it hits the DPS thresholds to clear very comfortably. And for a not super min-maxed account, it might end up outperforming your DPS characters anyways. It just really sort of depends on your level of artifact investment, talent investment, constellation investment, weapon investment, etc. But Nahida doesn't only have Hyperbloom, of course. She is Dendra the character, so she also runs Alhaitham Spread. Yeah, you can do Alhaitham Spread with other stuff, but I don't really like it too much. She also runs Nilou teams. Yeah, you can kind of cope with other stuff for Nilou, but I highly don't recommend that. But I wouldn't say that these teams really are something that most people want to strive towards for meta these days. It's just if you happen to want to play Nilou, then you need to get yourself a Nahida. Same, relatively speaking, with Alhaitham. Of course, he can get away with it. She also has other uses, being able to hold, you know, Thrilling Tales or One Even Star or whatever, or her signature or whatever for on Cloran teams for Aggravate. She can be part of the Burn Vape for Mualani teams, and her EM buff is quite useful. Tighnari teams, of course, if you're running your Tighnari. Tighnari Spread, also very good, especially in single target. But lately we've been getting stuff like Burning support, and Emily is just way better for Burning and also an off-field Dendro. Kinich wants Burning, so there just hasn't been all that much new stuff for Nahida that she really stays on top. I even considered bumping her off the tier 0 spot, but I haven't yet, just because she is so insanely good for free to plays, and she is really impactful on the teams that she's very impactful on. So I still think she still deserves the tier 0 spot, but there just hasn't been any upgrades to any of her teams in a very long time. She's sort of a character stuck in the past at this point. So I really do think there are room for upgrades in the future. But, you know, don't pull a character based on future potential. But she's not the meta staple she once was, but she's still very recommendable, especially, and now this is where we get to the next part, especially because her, Kuki, and Xingqiu are all on the same banner. If she was on a banner with other characters, I would strongly, like, really make a new player or other player really consider whether or not this is a banner you want to wish on, because, you know, Nahida is only good at these few things and other characters are sort of better, but this banner is so high value with Kuki and Xingqiu. Getting constellations for both of these, C2, and then Xingqiu has very impactful constellations all the way up to C6. Very good. And you can basically just add a good character to finish this off. If you happen to get Yelan, great. If you got Farina, if you have space for Farina in this team, if you just want to add Fischl, if you want to put Keqing on here, if you want to just do whatever. Any character that has some synergy can be the 4th slot and get you, like, this will be enough to 36 star. This is a banner where you could start playing Genshin Impact for the very first time and 36 star extremely quickly because of how this banner could carry you. It's by no means a must pull like banner for everyone because there are so many strong options. This is the state of Genshin Impact that we're in, is as long as you pick a strong 5-star and a strong couple teams, like if you got Xilonen and Farina, then there's lots of options to 36 star. There's no even close to must pulls anymore. There's so many strong team options available, but this is a core that you can just pick up and very easy to build, very easy to play, and will get you the damage that you need to get there. So I really like this banner. Kuki has some other uses as well. She can be used on spread teams, holding the key of Kajna suit and instructors and different stuff like that. Xingqiu has a ton of teams, vape teams. I especially like him in AoE Arlecchino vape as an alternative to something like Candace. I find it a bit more consistent. I almost don't use them that much anymore just because Yelan Farina is such a good core, but on teams like this, the extra Hydra application really closes the gap between the damage that he's missing out on from Yelan. So overall, he's just an extremely strong character regardless, especially when you get high constellations. And you can also choose a copy from Lantern Rite, which is coming up. So if you don't manage to quite snag C6, then don't push for it. You can, even if you only get C4, you can always buy one from the shop and get him at Lantern Rite, and then you've got your C6. And he's extremely versatile and very strong, very valuable. Sethos is a very strong aggravate carry, but I don't really like him. He only really works at C6, and I think he's really fun. I don't recommend, this is one character that I don't really recommend me for. If you're really interested in Sethos, I recommend looking for another content creator that is more focused on Sethos. He's a bit more of a specialist character. I'll get to him eventually, but I don't have C6. I don't even have C4. I used him on a server before that gave me constellations, so I was able to test him, and I could go onto someone else's account, but frankly it's just very busy keeping up with all the videos that I'm doing already. So right now I'm not super in tune with how good Sethos really is, so I recommend going to another content creator for this specific character. He's a funky one to play. You kind of want to do, you don't really use him in his quite intended playstyle because he has the fully charged charge shots or his normal attack. And to my understanding, the optimal way to play him is to not fully charge his charge shot and just sort of fire them off as they're coming online sooner than the game really wants you to. And that's how you're going to get the most aggravate damage. He's definitely a powerful character, but a weird one to really learn and play. So that's what I have to say about Sethos. Overall, the Nahida banner is one of the best value banners we've had in a very long time for people that want that quick and easy way to 36 star the Abyss, both with build and play. And then for Hu Tao mains, this is a great banner because you have Xingqiu and then you're getting Kuki, so maybe you have a Nahida as well. Weapon banner, both of these weapons are very good. Obviously the 1000 Floating Dreams, not super good on anyone but Nahida, but it is very good on her. Gives EM buff for your team and gives her good personal damage. And then Staff of Homa, really excellent overall generalist stat stick. Not as ubiquitous as it once was because there are lots more good polearms these days, but it's still one of the top choices, and boy does it ever look spectacular. What an amazing looking weapon. I notice a huge difference on my Hu Tao when I am and am not using Staff of Homa. It's not as huge on the teams where you're using Farina, because when you're using Farina, you're often using a healer, and so you're not always getting the full passive for it, so that's a little bit unfortunate. I think if you have both Nahida and Hu Tao, this is a very good banner. If not, like, Hu Tao has good free-to-play and 4-star options, especially the Battle Pass, Battle of Fjords. Deathmatch is good too. Dragon's Bane technically can be even better than Deathmatch if you happen to have a high refine. White Tassel is all right. So overall, you know, lots of free-to-play. Nahida, super free-to-play friendly. Weapon choices with Widsith for damage, Fav Codex if you need energy, Thrilling Tales if you're playing on a team that can use that, Sacrificial Fragments for EM buff, not as useful. I generally use the Widsith because she can use all the buffs and she does pretty good damage, but yeah, I sometimes use the other ones as well. The 4 stars are almost pretty good. Like Fav Bow, you get one for free, but it's not bad. Lion's Roar is sort of like good on a few characters, but not that great. Dragon's Bane, really only used at high refinement for Hu Tao. You can use it for EM Toma and EM Raiden, but it's generally, you only need one copy, so it's not really worth being on a weapon banner. Eye of Perception, the worst weapon in the game. And then Fruitful Hook increases plunging attack crit rate by 16% after a plunging attack hits an opponent. Normal, charge, and plunging attack damage increased by 16% for 10 seconds. Fascinating. My first thought is Diluc, but Diluc gets so much crit rate from Ascension and from Marie-Chaussee Hunter Artifact set. So 32% crit rate at R5 is probably too much to really build off of him. It's really unfortunate it's not crit damage. That would have been so good. But it is a really good weapon on a plunging team, and you want to plunge with claymores. So plunge claymore carries, if you can build it without overcapping on crit rate, this is going to be quite good. I expect it to be competitive with 5-star options based on the stat lines that it gives, if not possibly even outpacing potentially all 5-star. I could see it being a best in slot if you can not overcap on crit rate, but I think that is a huge if, and that's basically never going to happen. I like how this is like one of those grappling, not grappling hooks, but one of those like it's literally just that hook that you put on climbing gear and that you put on your backpack and stuff. That is hilarious. If this was on a Shen Yun banner, that would be really cool. I hope that they put that on a Shen Yun banner for plunge. So overall, I don't recommend that you just impulse wish on this banner, but both weapons are good enough, and it's only one fate point that, especially if you want to go for Homa for your Hu Tao, you could consider it, and this is not too bad of a weapon banner. Mostly if you have Nahida, but the 4-stars are kind of bad, but it's just like mostly it's only one fate point now, so you can consider it much more freely. So all that being said, keep in mind that if you are a meta player or if you're looking to build your account strength, the Pyro Archon is coming up, probably the patch after Chaska. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not even a meta player, just everyone wants the Archon. So just keep in mind Archon is coming soon. So don't, blow everything too early. But these are really good banners, so have at her and enjoy. Let me know your thoughts. Take care. Bye for now.